Rent-to-rent versus Airbnb management. Which business model should you be starting this year? If you're watching this video, you've probably looked at starting an Airbnb business and you're probably looking at starting it soon. You've probably come across two different models, rent-to-rent and Airbnb management. The problem is most people online are heavily biased towards one or the other. Some people will tell you that rent-to-rent is dead. Others will tell you that management isn't a real business. But after building a six-figure Airbnb business ourselves and operating both models, I can tell you that the truth is much deeper than that. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down what rent-to-rent is, what Airbnb management actually is, the pros and cons of each one, which model makes more money, which one carries more risk, and which one is easier to scale. By the end of this video, you'll have a much clearer understanding of which model suits your situation. So let's get into it. Now, firstly, what's quite funny about doing this video is that when we first got started in the industry back in 2020, we didn't realize we were starting with Airbnb management. Like most people, we thought that property was all about ownership. Buy a property, rent a property, that's what everyone talks about. But our first opportunity came from helping somebody else with their property. At the time, we weren't calling it Airbnb management. There wasn't some grand business plan that we had. We were simply helping a property owner achieve better results while taking care of the day-to-day operation. And that's when a light bulb moment happened for us. We realized there were property owners everywhere who wanted the income from short-term rentals, but didn't want the hassle that came with running them. They didn't want guest messages at all hours. They didn't want to coordinate cleaners. They didn't want to learn about pricing strategies. They wanted somebody else to handle all of that. That experience opened our eyes to something completely different in the industry. It showed us that you don't necessarily need to own a property to build a business in property. You can build a business around the operation of property. Now, we eventually expanded into rent-to-rent as well, and that became a huge part of our journey. But looking back, our first step into the industry was actually management. We just didn't know what it was called at the time. So what is rent-to-rent? Rent-to-rent is where you rent a property from a landlord on a long-term agreement and then operate the property as a short-term rental. So let's say a landlord has a property, you agree to pay them £1,200 every month, you then furnish the property, list it on Airbnb, and you rent it out to guests. The difference between your income and your expenses becomes your profit. The reason rent-to-rent became so popular is because it allows you to control property without actually owning it. You don't need to get a mortgage, you don't need tens of thousands of pounds, and compared to buying property, it's a much lower cost way to enter the industry. That's exactly why so many people, including ourselves, were attracted to it in the very beginning. But there's something important people don't always talk about. When you sign a rent-to-rent agreement, you are taking on risk, whether the property performs or not. If bookings slow down, if you have a quiet month, the rent is still due. You are responsible for that fixed commitment every single month, and that's something every aspiring operator needs to understand before jumping in. What is Airbnb management? Now, let's talk about Airbnb management. It is completely different. Instead of leasing the property yourself, you're managing it on behalf of the owner. You don't pay the owner rent or a fixed guaranteed rent. You don't take it on a lease. You are simply the operator. Your job is to maximize performance of the property. That might include guest communication, pricing optimization, cleaning coordination, or calendar management. In return, you take a percentage of the revenue generated, typically between 10 and 25%. For example, if a property generates £5,000 per month and you're charging a 20% management fee, your business earns £1,000. The key difference here is simple. You're not carrying the fixed property costs. The owner owns the asset, the owner takes the financial risk associated with ownership. You focus on delivering a great service, maximizing performance, and that changes the business model significantly. So what's the biggest difference between the two? Well, in my opinion, the biggest difference between these two models isn't actually profit. It's risk. So let's imagine both properties have a bad month. Your management property normally generates £4,000. This month, it only generates £2,500. That's frustrating. your management fee is significantly lower. You earn less, but the business survives. Now imagine the exact same thing happens on a rent-to-rent property. The bookings drop, revenue falls, but the rent is still due. The bills are due, the cleaner still needs paying. Suddenly the pressure becomes very different. Now, this isn't designed to scare anyone away from rent-to-rent. I still think rent-to-rent is a fantastic model when done correctly. But I believe people should understand the reality before choosing a path. Every business model has trade-offs. The question isn't whether one is perfect. The question here is whether the risk profile suits your situation. Now, this is a question that everybody wants to know: which one makes more money? Generally speaking, rent-to-rent tends to generate more profit per property. Let's use an example here. A property generates, let's say, £4,000. You've got to pay rent, bills, cleaning, any other expenses. You might come out with a profit of around £1,000 to £2,000. Under management, charging a 20% fee, you'll earn £800. So yes, on a single property basis, rent-to-rent can often produce more cash flow, and that's one of the reasons why it is very, very attractive. However, profit alone doesn't tell the full story, because you also need to look at the amount of capital required to get started, the amount of risk involved, and the amount of liability that you're taking on. A model that produces slightly less profit but significantly less risk can often be the better decision depending on where you're at. Let's talk about scaling. Imagine you want to add 10 more properties to your portfolio. With rent-to-rent, you're likely looking at deposits, furniture, setup costs, utility setups, things like that. Potentially thousands of pounds, okay? Now compare that to management. The owner already owns a property. The owner has already invested in this asset. You are bringing in the expertise, the systems, the operational knowledge. As a result, management can often scale faster because you're not constantly raising capital for every additional property. In many ways, management is closer to building a service business, whereas rent-to-rent is closer to building an asset control portfolio. Neither is right or wrong, they're simply different. So a big question I get a lot is, should I do rent-to-rent or Airbnb management? If we start with rent-to-rent, it's probably a better option for you if you have the capital available, if you're comfortable with taking risks and you want a higher cash flow per property, you're happy signing leases, and you want more control of the properties you operate. So things like having a say on furniture. For the right person, rent-to-rent can be an incredible business model. It's helped thousands of people build successful portfolios like ourselves, and it still remains a very viable strategy to this day. So who should choose management? Well, management might be a better option for you if you're getting started with limited funds, you want to be on the lower side of risk, you want to build a service business, you want to gain experience before taking on liabilities, and you want a model that can scale significantly without upfront investment. For many people entering this industry today, management provides a lower risk entry point while still allowing them to build a profitable business. So what would I do today? If I was starting from scratch today, my answer depends on one thing. How much money have I got available to get started? If I had a substantial amount of capital behind me, I'd probably look at both models. I'd choose opportunities on a case-by-case basis. But if I was starting with less than £3,000, I'd focus on Airbnb management. Here's why. With rent-to-rent, you're typically looking at deposits, furniture, setup costs, contingency funds before you even welcome your first guest. Management allows you to start generating revenue without taking on those same upfront costs and liabilities. You can learn the industry, can build relationships, understand operations, and gain real experience managing properties. Most of all, you can do it without committing yourself to fixed monthly rent payments. This doesn't mean that rent-to-rent doesn't work, because it absolutely does. We've built a successful business from it ourselves. But if someone came to me today and said, Ben, I've got less than £3,000 to invest, what is the smartest route into Airbnb? My answer would simply be start with management. If you can learn the business, master the operations, build your confidence, build your cash flow, then when the money starts coming in, start moving into rent to rent and diversifying your portfolio. Because at the end of the day, the model isn't what makes someone successful, the operator is. And if you can consistently deliver great guest experiences and run efficient systems, opportunities will always exist in this industry for you. If you've got any questions about rent to rent or Airbnb management, drop us a message on Instagram, you'll find a link below. If you're interested in learning how to build an Airbnb business for yourself, check out some of our other videos. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.